Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. Alicia, what's your read of this question? And then one other lingering thing is the legality. Is it still a potential open court case, whether Trump has the legal authority delegated by Congress to just one day put 25% tariffs on an ally like Canada?
So my sources say that he is going to blink. He does not actually plan to follow through, but you never know with Donald Trump. He may change his mind, and right now it's just a lot of bluster. On the second question, in his executive orders that he issued about a month ago, he invoked this law, this sanctions law, IEEPA, that gives the president broad-ranging powers to usually to protect national security interests. No president has actually ever invoked this law to impose tariffs. Richard Nixon used or invoked the predecessor of the law to do so on the pretext of reducing the trade deficit, actually, but his tariffs actually didn't last all that long. They only were in effect for a few months. But what Congress actually ended up doing the years afterwards, it actually passed several laws that gave the president explicit authority to impose tariffs for a variety of means. Section 232 for national security. There's also a separate section of trade law that allows the president to impose tariffs for other countries discriminating against the U.S. or to reduce the trade deficits. But the IEEPA law that was later passed, that does not give the president any explicit authority to impose the tariffs. Now, there is some provision in there that allows him to restrict or regulate imports. That's not the same thing as tariffs. And in fact, Biden, who used IEEPA to impose all kinds of sanctions on Russia, did not use the law to actually impose tariffs on Russia. Congress actually came back in June 2022 and gave him separate authority to impose tariffs on Russia, which would suggest that the law does not allow President Trump to do what he intends or is threatening to do. If this were to draw a legal challenge, which I think it could, though nobody has yet sued, I think President Trump's invocation would be struck down under the Supreme Court's major questions doctrine, which says that Congress express congressional authorization is required for any kind of politically or economic significant actions, and there is no doubt that tariffs would count as that.
On the one hand, Monet, the courts seem to be reluctant to second-guess a president, an executive, when he cites national security, when he says that something is an emergency. On the other hand, that is what this IEEPA law, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, has been used for in the past, prohibiting transactions with Iran and North Korea and so forth. And so if you do get a court case of somebody who is an importer of Canadian maple syrup, let's say, and goes to the federal judiciary and says, come on, this is not a national security issue, it'd be a fascinating case, maybe coming to a Supreme Court near you.
Yeah, I think that on the one hand, the recent record of federal rulings on tariff power have been extremely permissive. Obviously, President Trump imposed tariffs several times during his first term. President Biden both preserved most of those and also imposed new ones of his own. And these were challenged very often. They usually didn't rise to the Supreme Court. Generally, these cases were ruled on definitively by the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals. And what they generally did was uphold the president's ability to impose tariffs, citing the traditional authorities like Section 232 and 301 for the tariffs that he imposed on China. And in those rulings, they had very, very broad approval of the president's ability to define an emergency as he sees fit. So they said there doesn't have to be an imminent danger to the United States, for example, for the president to declare an emergency and impose tariffs on that basis. But I do agree with Alicia that the IEEPA tariffs are of a different category, and the courts could rule in a different way, in the sense that he's not citing any particular national security threat, nor is he accusing China, Canada, Mexico of dumping, essentially of subsidizing their exports to the United States. It's the vaguest possible definition of an emergency that I think will stretch the bounds even of the permissive precedents that the courts have already set down. And I do think that it's likely that these ones won't stand up, and so it will will be a question of who's willing to sue and who will the most sympathetic plaintiff be, and particularly because the Supreme Court also, in their intervening time, has laid out its major questions doctrine, which basically says even if presidential actions might abide by authorities given to the executive branch in the broadest possible way, if they have a major impact on the economy and he doesn't have clear authority given to him by Congress to take a particular action, that can still be reined in. And so I think we can expect a ruling which will reel Trump back in if he does move ahead with IEEPA tariffs on the bases that he has described so far.
Thank you, Monet and Alicia. Thank you all for listening. You can email us at pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Potomac Watch.